Hi everyone. So we're going to continue our learning of Mishnah Berachot. We'll be learning from the 6th chapter, and we'll start with Mishnah 4. That's where we left off last time. And before we begin that, I'll do what we do every Wednesday and read this week's list of yard sites from our synagogue. And instead of being able to recall them with some learning each day at Shachrit, we're recalling them this day every Wednesday when we do our learning of Mishnah Berachot. And have this learning be in their memory. So here's that list. Andrew Lesney, Aaron ben Abraham Alevi, Bernard Hammerman OAM, Baruch ben Shmuel, Peter Model, Yosef ben Moshe, Bessie Tatz, Basha bat Moshe, Carl Treyer, Kalman ben Yaakov Akoin, Dr. Janiel Crooks, Yaakov ben Traga, Ezer Blum, Yitzchak ben Herschel, Stan Markowitz, Yehuda ben Abraham Abba, Esther Solomons, Esther bat Shimon, Mina Altshuler, Miriam bat Moshe, Rachel Glass, Rachel bat Hechaber Eliyahu, Harry May, Chaim ben Rav Yaakov, Louis Hertzberg, Yaakov Littman ben Asher, Rabbi Francis Lyon Cohen, Moreno Arav Pinchas Yehuda ben Zev Yaakov HaKohen, Lazar Ratton, Daniel Richard Solomons, Daniel ben David, Floret Shach, Fega Rosa bat Shmuel, Isidore Hari, Ezra ben Shlomo Halevi, Miriam Seidman, Miriam bat Hirsch, Rose Shilkin, Shoshana bat Moshe Tzvi, Samuel Jessup, Shmuel ben Abraham. Okay, thank you. So we're starting with Mishnah 4 of chapter 6 of Mishnah Berachot. And we were learning about the blessings on different foods. That's the way chapter 6 started. Now we're talking about how do we prioritize certain blessings when maybe certain foods share the same blessing. That's the way the first mission that we're going to look at talks about, or other issues that come up with the hierarchy of brachot. So let's hear. Daled. Hayu lefanav minim harbe, Rabbi Yehuda omer, im yesh b'nehem mimin shiva mevarach alav. So if there were many species of food before him, and we'll see the context here means that they have foods of the same bracha, Rabbi Yehuda says, if there is among them one of the 7 species, so if you're blessing on fruit and you're saying blessings on things that, let's say, have a borei pri ha'etz, and one of the 2 things that you're about to eat is one of the 7 species that are unique to the land of Israel, that are outlined in the Torah. In Devarim, it talks about the wheat, barley, grape, fig, pomegranate, olive, the oil that comes from that, and honey, which is date honey. So any of those species, Rabbi Yehuda says that those take precedence over something that's not of the 7 species, but also has a borei pri ha'etz. V'chachamim omrim mevarach al ezesh mehen sheyirtzeh. And the chachamim say, they disagree with Rabbi Yehuda, that actually you should bless on whichever one. If you have 2 fruits that both have a borei pri ha'etz, you bless on the one that you want more, the one that you like more and want to eat first. So just a difference there. About how it takes precedence. Is it based on personal preference, or is it based on an internal hierarchy within a single bracha even? So there's that difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Okay, we'll continue. Mishnah 5, hey. Berach al hayayin shelifnei hamazon, patar et hayayin shelachar hamazon. If one recited a blessing on the wine which precedes the meal, he has discharged his obligation for the wine which follows the meal. So I have to take a second to explain that, what we're talking about here. So let's say there's 3 kind of sections to a meal. There's before, so before you say the hamotzi and therefore exempt the other foods that you're going to eat with the bread. There's after you said hamotzi and all the things that are included in that, so all the things that are subordinate to the hamotzi and are part of the actual meal. And then there's after, which is not actually after in the sense you still haven't said birkat hamazon, you still haven't really concluded the meal and said the blessings after the meal. But after, in the sense that now you're eating dessert type foods, things that you eat for the taste rather than for sustenance. It's not meat and vegetables that are going along with the bread. It's something like fruit or other dessert items, things, and then still before the benching. So that's the 3 sections of the meals that they're using here. So here it says, if one recited a blessing on wine that precedes the meal, so you haven't you haven't made hamotzi, you haven't had other foods. You make a blessing on your wine, you have your wine, you've discharged your obligation for which wine that follows after the meal even. So it continues for an extended period of time. Berech al parperet shelifnei hamazon, patar et parperet shel achar hamazon. If one recited a blessing on the parperet, which we'll have to say what that is, which precedes the meal, he has discharged his obligation for the parperet which follows the meal. So parperet is explained as one of two things. It's either things that are eaten with bread for sustenance, meat and fish and eggs, things like that. Alternatively, it could be this like mixture of breadcrumbs with like liquid and this. So it's either something that has a shehakol or it's something that has a borei minei mezonot, some kind of grain-based thing, or some kind of like meat, fish, eggs, all those kinds of things that have a shehakol and are part of the meal and are eaten along with bread. So what did we say about it? We said that if you made a blessing on bread, then that includes the obligation for all the parperet, all the other things that you're going to eat along with that. If you make a blessing on the parperet, lo patar tapat. So the blessing on meat, if you just make a shehakol on meat, that doesn't exempt you from making a blessing on bread. You always have to make a blessing on bread. And then this part is a little confusing. Beit Shammai omrim, af lo maseh kedera. Af lo maseh kedera, yeah. So, and Beit Shammai says he has not even discharged his obligation. He's not even exempted having to make a blessing on maseh kedera, which is some kind of porridge, some kind of stew. The Gemara, actually, the Talmud is even uncertain about what Beit Shammai is talking about here. So it maybe has to do with maybe they're the same blessing, the parperet and the maseh kedera, and it has something to do with maybe they're not like ikar and tafel, like the way that bread is with other things, that it exempts other things. Maybe this didn't happen because you didn't have in mind that they're like intrinsically linked and part of the same meal, or some other reason. That part is a little confusing, and the Talmud also doesn't know exactly. Doesn't have a resolution to this problem that Beit Shammai seems to be bringing. Okay, we'll move on to number 6. Hayu yoshvin lechol, kol echad ve'echad mevarach la'atzma. So if people were sitting together to eat, each and every one recites a blessing for himself, a blessing on the food that he's eating, and we'll talk about this in let's read another sentence, and then we'll understand exactly what they're getting at. There's something here about Mishnayot times. It's a little different than our modern reality. Hesebu echad mevarach lechulan. If they're reclining to eat, one recites the blessings for all of them. So the difference here in the Mishnah is maybe not equivalent to what we would have. It's saying that if they're just eating together, sitting, that would be like a casual kind of thing. That would be kind of like they just happen to be together and sharing a space, but not actually sharing a meal together. But if they're reclining, reclining in the Mishnayot time was the indicator of it being a meal together, a group meal. Nowadays we sit and we could be having a meal together. So, the real essence of what we're getting at here about how you determine whether they can bless together or not is, are they joining together to have a meal together? Then one person can bless and exempt other people, or are they just casually? It's just people like sharing a table. Maybe they don't really know each other. Just happen to be near each other, not actually sharing in a meal together. Okay. Ba lahem yain b'toch hamazon. If wine was brought to them during the meal, they're already eating, they already made their hamotzi, now wine is brought. Kol echad ve'echad mevarach la'atzmo. Everyone should bless for himself. L'achar hamazon, if it's brought after you've had like the meat and the bread and all of those things, but before you've benched, l'achar hamazon, echad mevarach lechulam. One person can bless on the wine that was just brought for everyone. So what's the difference here? First of all, it's important to say that wine is one of the things that is not exempt by hamotzi, that wine is so significant it gets, even though it's a lesser blessing, and normally the higher one maybe could exempt lesser ones. In this case, wine is so significant that it gets its own blessing, even if you already made hamotzi, even though hamotzi covers other things in the meal. But here we're saying that if it's brought in the middle of like the main eating, eating of the bread and the meat and the vegetables and all of those things, everyone should make their own blessing. But if it's afterwards, like before, maybe they're having dessert and they're having some more wine, then one person can bless for everyone. And the reason is because, one, they thought maybe people would be so consumed with eating that they wouldn't have their mouth clear, they wouldn't be listening, they'd be they'd be eating and maybe chatting or whatever they're doing, and they wouldn't properly have the intention of listening to someone make the blessing and therefore exempting them from having to make a blessing. They wouldn't have the proper intention. They wouldn't be properly engaged. They wouldn't be having their mouth clear to say Amen properly. Or potentially, they're in the middle of chewing, and if they say Amen, it's a safety hazard. We don't want to talk while we're chewing our food. It's even the rabbis are we've known that for thousands of years that that's not a good idea, that could be dangerous. So there was concern for that. So for one of those two reasons, that if it's during the meal, everyone should make their own bracha so that everyone has the proper intention and that everyone is saying it at the point where he's ready to do it because his mouth is clear and not going to have a choking hazard. But if it's after the meal, if it's before benching but during the dessert portion of the meal, then one person can make a blessing for everyone when everyone will be maybe not really consumed by the meal and maybe paying better attention and won't be so engaged in eating. Maybe they'll be like snacking on just fruit and won't always have their mouth full and be able to say Amen in a safe way and be able to pay attention in a proper way. V'hu omer al hamugmar afa pi she'ein mevi'in et hamugmar ela la'achar hasuda. So here's something interesting, something that shed some insight historically on during Mishnayot times, what was a common custom. So it says here, the one that says the blessing on the incense, maybe we haven't heard of this, we don't know why is there incense involved with the meal, but we're going to learn about that. Afal pi she'ein mevi'in et hamugmar ela la'achar hasuda. Even though they did not bring the incense until after the meal. So there was a custom in Mishnayot times, and maybe further, I don't know the full history of this, that after a meal you would bring out some incense, and there would be a blessing of Berachot b'samim, of the blessed who creates the fragrant woods on the incense, and this was after the meal. So this is really after the meal, after the Suda, they're saying, which means like after you've benched, after everything. So it's saying that the person who, either the person who led the Birkat HaMazon, or maybe it's referring to the person who made this Berei Pri HaGafen, either or, even though it's after the Suda and it's not connected, this blessing on the incense, and you might have thought, let's get another person involved and have another person do a blessing. Actually, one of those people, it's unclear which one, probably the person who led the benching, or maybe it means the person who made the blessing on the wine, should say this blessing. So somehow, even though it's not connected to the Suda, it's still connected that the person who led that should make that blessing. You shouldn't have a new person do it for whatever reason. We don't, I don't know if this is a common practice anymore, but it's a nice one, and surely permissible to make extra blessings on nice smelling things. I know a lot of people do that on Shabbat specifically to add more brachot, and I'm sure that was part of the reason here, but apparently this was a very fixed custom, very, very common at their time, and they're shedding some insight into that even though it's after the Su'udah, there's still a connection with the person who just led the benching, and that person should make that bracha. Okay, we'll continue with Mishnah Zayin, Mishnah 7, next time we meet next Wednesday, and I wish everyone well. Have a great week. Okay, bye.